huge computer. It's basically sort of like we're not even flying it, you know. We give it input, it goes to a computer, the computer goes, oh, this is what she wants. Well, maybe I'll tell flight controls to do this. It's amazing. So 25 pounds of pressure is all you can put on the stick. It's the most it'll read. So, you know, you're fighting BFM, come on, come on, and you're putting like 50 pounds of pressure and just killing yourself, but it's fun.
Trouble adjusting to that little.
To the little stick? No, actually, it's very, very comfortable, very easy, just like a computer game. It's amazing. Yes, sir.
How many G's do you complete?
I have pulled 9 Gs.
You have one?
Yes, sir. The most it'll give you, 9 Gs. Yes, sir.
Turns inside out.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts. I'm not gonna lie to you. It doesn't feel good. You really got to be on top of your NIG straining maneuver, which is something you got to do. You got all your gear on. We have Combat Edge, which is in addition to the G suit, it's a vest with a modification to the mask. I love the modification to the mask. The helmet actually inside has bladders that blow up and push your face. Push your face into the mask so that it doesn't slide down. It's great. And the vest is supposed to give you counter pressure for your breathing. So it's good. It's good stuff. We have good equipment.
Well, that's maximum, isn't it? There's no,
Yes, sir. 9 Gs max. It's not supposed to give you any more than that. Sometimes I've seen some people get about 9.5. But the computer won't give you more than that. Yes, sir.
Do you go cross-country flights very much? And do you go to other bases when you do it?
You know, we honestly don't go cross-country that much. I had the opportunity to go last November down to Houston, Ellington Field. Great place to be. Great FBO down there, Southwest Services.
How long did it take you? A whole week or just back there? And
We actually did a 7 sortie, started on Friday, came back on Monday, cross-country. We went down to Luke, got some gas, went to Ellington Field, and then while we were at Ellington Field, we scheduled some of their airspace over the water, which was really cool, and fought some BFM out there twice in one day. And the next day we headed up to, what's that base in McConnell,
and you do
Kansas.
sorties while you're doing that then?
Yes, sir. Not all the time. Sometimes it's just hopping, but we actually did some local sorties out of Houston. Their F-16, they have a guard unit, F-16 unit down there, and they were actually sitting alert for Noble Eagle, so we weren't able to fight them. And there were some Super Hornets down there, some F-18 Super Hornets, and they wouldn't fight us. They were scared.
Nothing. Ever go straight up in the air? Or,
Have I ever gone straight up in the air?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
many times, huh?
Oh, yeah.
What's the reason for that?
Well, on takeoff, it's a zoom departure. It's mostly for other people to see, or if you have an incentive rider in the back, it's pretty cool to take off like that, you know. You have to get special clearance for it. We don't do that normally.
I thought maybe when you graduate or something like that, make sure you do that. But not really.
Not really, no, sir. That's kind of a thing where you ask for after you leave a field, after a deployment kind of thing.
It's not fully
just
loaded
the-
though.
You can do it. Well, it's easier not fully loaded, but yeah. But then in the airspace, pointing straight up is pretty much a good BFM maneuver.
That's practice for a bomb break, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Your most hazardous flight?
My most hazardous flight. I think the most scared I've been is during an ACM engagement, air combat maneuvers. There I was. My flight lead's over here, I'm over here, and the red air is coming up behind us, and I'm spiked. He's behind me, and I called brake turn, so we turn. My flight lead thinks, because he had just called a right-hand turn, he thinks that I'm seeing him, but I'm actually seeing the bandit, right? So he doesn't see the bandit. So we're turning with this guy, and probably should have called knock it off at some point in there, but I didn't realize that he thought, other things. So we keep turning, all of a sudden I'm nose high, and I see this jet do this from underneath me, and you know, contrails coming off his strikes and stuff, and I'm going, I know he doesn't see me either, because he's belly up to me. And I don't think to this day that he knows how close it was, and I can't even pinpoint which guy it was. It was pretty scary. It was very scary. That's pretty much about it. I really haven't had any emergencies in the aircraft. Exactly. Personally. No. Thank you.
Knock on wood.
I'm a little bit superstitious. What else?
Are you married?
What kind of pressures have you felt?
I'll get to that in a second.
What kind of pressures have you felt being a woman pilot going into a male-dominated field?
I've always been a tomboy, playing, you know, sports with the boys, and the academy was very male-oriented as well. So I just kind of never been in any other situation. Haven't felt any kind of discrimination, any kind of glass ceiling, nothing like that. I mean, I'm just one of the boys, and I think they like me. They tell me they like me, whether they do or not, I don't know. But yeah, it's been a pretty easy road for me. And I know other women haven't had the same experience, but for me it's been very easy as far as that goes. I'm not married. I met an A-10 guy when I was at Moody for casual status, and we've been dating for 4 years. He's down at Davis Monthan in Afghanistan right now, actually. He's been in Afghanistan since October, and he'll be back at the end of next month. So, long distance relationship, you know, that kind of thing. But he hasn't asked me to marry him yet.
You looking forward to going over there?
I am looking forward to going over there. Actually, I am. I mean, basically I haven't been anywhere except for Langley for Noble Eagle. And so that was a very important mission. You know, you always want to go to the dance, as they call it, right? I mean, it's just like being on the second string of the basketball team and never playing, and then you get to go, and you get to start, you know.
Do you change shifts? Do you go out different times of the day over the desert?
Oh, I really don't know how it works over in the desert. Are you talking about this desert or that desert?
No, the Atlanta.
Oh, yes, sir. Our fly window shifts every now and then. I've been on the night schedule for a
You're
long
the one that
time.
wakes me up about 7 o'clock.
Sorry.
I had her to drive over my house.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, next week too.
You should read this. First page and then second page.
You want me to read it out loud?
Well, it doesn't matter.
That's good. It says, the U.S. released Saddam as the subject. The U.S. Navy today announced this is in no way official. Okay. Whew. You sure there's no media in here? I see some people writing. The U.S. Navy today announced that it has released Saddam Hussein after questioning him extensively for 27 hours while being held prisoner aboard a U.S. aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea. In a humanitarian gesture, he was given $50 U.S. in a white Ford Fairlane automobile upon being released from custody. The attached photo shows him on his way home just after being released from the Navy. And then there's a picture of an aircraft carrier with a Ford Fairlane taking off, if you will. That's good. Did I play sports at the academy? Actually, I did not. I messed my knee up in basic training. I wanted to walk onto the basketball team, but after my knee healed and the team was made for that year, I was pretty much out of it after that. No cheerleading. Well, okay, here's the deal with cheerleading. I would have loved to be a cheerleader, but I'm a little bit too big for the co-ed squad. You know, they can't lift a 160-pound girl versus a... I was always the base in the pyramids in high school, yeah. But I would have loved to have done that. And they actually, I had an instructor pilot in at Columbus who went to the academy, graduated in '95, and she was actually on a dance team there. They had a dance team for about a year, and or a couple of years, but that stopped before I got there. I would have loved that. That would be great. But no. So I played handball, racquetball court handball, not team handball. And I had a good time, got to go to a couple places, got to go to Texas A&M for the National Collegiate Tournament, and Chicago, and San Francisco. So I got to do a little bit of traveling. That was a good time. I wasn't very good, but it was fun.
You get to fire the 20 mil occasionally?
I do get to fire the 20 mil. Yes, I do. When we go out for the basic service attack range, Eagle, we fire the gun almost every time. Little angle strafe on those rags out there and get scored. It's pretty cool.
What kind of sensation is that in the cockpit when that goes off?
Well, it was scary the first time because you're not expecting the noise. It sounds like almost like a fast jackhammer.
Kind of like
And-
underneath your left elbow there anyway.
Yeah, it's right over here. And it shakes, and sometimes there's this yellow pieces of hard foam stuff that like comes out, and I'm not real sure what that is, but it's normal, evidently. So you'll have some junk on your sleeve or whatever when you get out of the airplane, but it shakes everything. I mean, it's pretty violent. It's impressive though. It's fun to do. 75 feet above the ground down there. 450 knots. Yes.
If you lose your computer input, are you able to control the aircraft fairly well manually? I thought.
There is no manual reversion type thing, but the electronics are backed up like 4 times. There's 4 different generators. The main thing that we have that is like a last resort is the emergency power unit, the EPU, and that runs out the hydrazine, which is a very toxic gas. That thing fires up and nothing else is running and you know you're in trouble, but it'll bring you home. Yeah. So there's no way to manually fly the aircraft. But it's very reliable. There's one, actually there's 2 flight computers, one main one and then a digital backup flight computer. As long as you have your electrics and your hydraulics, you're good. And the EPU powers one of the hydraulic systems. So it'll keep you safe. Yes, sir.
You fly that, the F-16 simulator very much.
Do I fly the F-16 simulator very much? And the answer is yes on that one. We have certain amounts that we have to fly the simulator. And when you're in an upgrade program, you go to the simulator to practice your rides prior to, and that's part of the syllabus prior to your actual ride. We have like quarterly EP requirement. You go in the simulator and practice emergency procedures. So that's the only place that you can practice emergency procedures, because with one engine, you're not going to shut it down. Airborne, I mean, come on. So we do all of our emergency procedures in the simulator, except for the simulated flame-out landing, which we practice. We just pull it to idle and practice that. This airplane will glide 1-to-1 ratio, which is really good. Yeah, it's easy math too. Hey, I'm 25 miles from the field and 25,000 feet. Yes. Yes. Did you have a question back there?
Tell us about your air refueling experience.
My air refueling experience. I got about 4 of them at Luke, and then probably 1 or 2 here before we went to Noble Eagle, and then it was all the time at Noble Eagle. Air refueling is actually simple, but it's nerve-wracking. It's like flying fingertip formation with the huge aircraft, and you're like, oh my gosh, this thing's coming at me with a big boom, And the F-16 is unique in that our air refueling port is directly behind us, behind the canopy. There's actually some disconnect between the tanker community and us about how we're supposed to approach the boom. Although it's pretty much fixed now, I think it was actually a big deal back when. Because Because we drive straight at the boom, and we expect the boomer to move the boom around our canopy. So, and they will. I mean, obviously, you're driving straight at the boom, they're going to go, oh gosh. But it has become standard procedure that they know that that's what we're going to do, so they automatically move it out of the way. When we come up, and as soon as it passes our canopy, they move it over and go, bink. KC-10s, that boom is very strong, grabby. It almost fly your jet for you. The KC-135's a little bit more difficult to stay with, but it's actually fairly simple. I hate to downplay it, but daytime VFR, daylight, it's very simple. Nighttime, in the weather, not simple at all, because you will get spatial disorientation like you would not believe. I've actually had that one time. I thought the tanker and I were like this. I'm telling my flight lead, I'm like, man, this guy's turning upside down. He's like, yeah, no, he's not. So, actually, one time in the Noble Eagle cap up there, I get on the boom and there were some, I think they were guard from Richmond, Indiana, something like that. And the boomer says to me, I really didn't know whether it was the pilot or the boomer, and they're all guard guys, they're older, that kind of thing. And they hear a chick on the radio, and gives a whole new meaning to chicks in tow, doesn't it? Okay, that was pretty funny. He says to me over the radio, he says, so, is this your, how long have you been flying the F-16? It's like, it's my first assignment. And he says, because when they hook up, you're automatically on the intercom through the boom, which is pretty cool. And he says to me, I said, yeah, I got it straight out of pilot training. And he says, oh, you got the short straw. Who got the short straw? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I didn't really even know what to say until I got down on the ground after I fumed about it for a while. I'm like, what is he talking about? He's flying in tankers, and I'm flying a Viper, and he's saying I got the short straw? I don't think so. But no offense to heavy drivers. No offense at all.
How long does that take to refuel when you're hooked up?
Once you're hooked up, it actually, they can determine the rate of the fuel transfer. But it's normally, if they're filling you up, 4 minutes maybe, 5 minutes. So the cool thing to do when you're on the tanker is get your power in the right area, right? Because you're just the tanker's flying on autopilot, so it's not hard to, once you set an airspeed, to stay with him. And just stick your arm up on the canopy rail. That's fun. Yes, I'm cool. Yes.
How noisy is it in the cockpit? Say when you're taxiing and you've got someone else behind you, and then when you're flying, like say when you're firing a missile off the rail or something like that.
I've never actually fired a missile off the rail, which kind of stinks. But it's fairly noisy, as in, I had a friend fly in the back of an F-18, and he's like, wow, that thing was quiet. And I don't know why, but you're sitting on top of the intake there. We wear the earplugs and the helmet and turn the radios up fairly loud. It's a fairly loud airframe, but what we don't hear is wind noise. So you could be doing 200 knots, you could be doing 500 knots, and you don't hear a difference.
When you're taxiing, can you hear other planes that are taxiing with you?
Basically, you pretty much just hear yourself. The high-pitched noise at the intake there. Yeah. But you can hear other planes, like if you're at the end of the runway, you can hear them taking off.
And you also mentioned that you don't use the rudder very often.
Mm-hmm.
When do you? And do you ever use the manual trim, either the panel or the switch?
When do I use the rudder? Because I mentioned that I don't use the rudder very much. This airplane is very hard to put out of control, but if you assault the limiters, full right stick, full right or left rudder, either one, the flight control computer is going to go, what are you doing? And stop everything or give you a fault or go out of control easier. So there are a couple different schools of thought on the rudder, and some people use them a lot, and other people don't even touch them. And when I really use it is BFM. Dogfighting at the floor, trying to keep my nose above the floor. That's when I use the rudder, and that's about it. The other time I use the rudder is after takeoff, I notice my trim is off, so to speak. So I center the ball for a while until I can then come down to the manual trim panel. That's about the only time I use the manual trim panel is to center the ball for the rudder. Pretty much, I mean, it stays at 1G, so unless the trim is off, up or down trim, pitch trim, then you don't ever touch that trim. Unless there is a technique during a basic surface attack to do a couple clicks of pitch forward trim, because your best bombs come off at about 0.8, 0.9 Gs. So if you're not, unless you push on the stick, the airplane's going to do a banana pass 1G, so either push on it or click a couple forward clicks of trim so it stays at 0.8 Gs and you don't have to do anything. Which is pretty cool. Yes?
How old were you when you decided to do this, and what veered you in this direction?
Well, my dad claims he got me into it. But I don't really believe him. He claims we were on a walk one day, I was in high school, and some F-16s from Shaw flew over, because we don't live too far from there. And I said, wow, that's cool, and Top Gun was out about then, standard. And I watched it every day. I think I got in trouble for watching it every day, which is interesting. But he claims that I said, that'd be really cool to do that. And he said, well, you can do anything you want. I said, well, how am I going to do that? And he says, well, and then the whole college application thing came about. And, man, I am a procrastinator. I really am. And, but I do a good job at the end of the time. So the college applications came around, and my parents didn't really have the money to send me to where I wanted to go, which was Wake Forest. Interesting thing is that I probably wouldn't be in the military had I not gone to the academy, because I had a huge misconception about what ROTC was. I just, didn't know what it was. I mean, maybe I would have learned in college and then transferred or tried to get a ROTC scholarship. But once I got to the academy, basically I said to my parents, I have to decide whether I want to go or not. And they said, well, it's your decision. And I said, well, I don't want to go. They said, that's a bad decision. No kidding quote from my father. It's your decision, honey. I don't want to go. That's a very bad decision. You're going. Okay. So I bring that up all the time. And then it was just sort of an obvious path from there based on medical qualification to be a pilot. And then I've always been very competitive and, don't want to settle for second best. So I was like, what's the coolest thing the Air Force does, be the tip of the spear. So I then went into fighters, and when I had to decide what kind of fighter airplane I wanted, I didn't want an A-10 because I didn't want that mission. I didn't want an F-15C because I didn't want that mission. And I thought it would be really cool to drop bombs and shoot people air to air. So F-16 was the obvious choice on that one. Yes.
Well, did your dad not help you get the appointment? Was it a congressional appointment? That's how I got mine to West Point. My dad did it. I didn't volunteer.
So you were in a similar situation. He actually did help me a lot with the application process. It's actually a funny story. The principal of my high school was the chapter president of the NAACP in the area and was good friends with James Clyburn, the congressman I got my appointment from. I made a horrible interview mistake. I interviewed with Strom Thurmond. I actually didn't interview with him, but one of his, undersecretaries or whatever. But, I'm interviewing to go to the Air Force Academy, and what do I wear? I wear a dress. Because, trying to look nice for an interview. I wear a dress, and I'm my smiley self, and he's just like, who is this? You're not military, material. And I'm like, whatever. So I didn't get Strom Thurmond's appointment, but I got James Clyburn's. Yeah.
What are your career aspirations?
What are my career aspirations? Well, the next assignment looks like I'm probably going to try to stay in the F-16 and maybe go to Korea. And then after that, I will probably try to get a 12th Air Force Chief of Safety job. I'm going to try for that one. Down in Davis-Monthan, you actually still fly the F-16 up here at Hill about a week a month, which is, I think that's, for a staff job, a flying staff job is even better. So hopefully I'll make it back up here to these ranges. And then after that, I don't know. That comes to the end of my commitment, and that's a whole other issue. So don't know whether I'm making a career out of it just yet, but I'm paving my way so that I can, if I make that decision. Yes, sir.
So you're doing real good, Captain, in the number of years you've been in.
Well, I've been in for almost 5 years. Yeah.
Pretty darn good.
So, well, second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain are automatic. Well,
You got any brothers and sisters that's in the military?
I have a brother. He's not in the military. He's a police officer. He should have been in the military. He should have been in the Army. He really should have. But he's Cap instead. And a NCAA basketball referee. Yeah, pretty proud of him. Yes, sir.
How long could you fly the F-16 if you wanted it to?
It's really hard to stay in the airplane nowadays.
Why?
Just based on other career choices, and like most people will have to go to some kind of alpha tour, that kind of thing, ALO. The best way to be in the F-16 as long as you possibly can is to do an assignment like this and then volunteer for like a jump remote ALO, things like that, and then that guarantees you 4 more years back in the aircraft. There are some guys who have never been out of the F-16, but that's rare. Those are the hard chargers, the ones who are really doing it well.
Why wouldn't the military want you to stay in the same plane just because the cost of training and your proficiency in it?
You would think. I think mostly, people end up going to pilot training, and because they need people from the combat Air Force to go teach the new guys how to fly. So that's a huge pool of people who should be in the airplane, but should be there as well. And the whole air liaison officer thing is very big now. And they're moving to UAVs. So we've had one RAM get a UAV within the last year. So he's flying UAVs down in Indian Springs. And that's not something we hope for at all as pilots, I'm sure. You guys wouldn't want to fly a remote control airplane. What's the joke on that one? What do you do when you crash your UAV? Call your wife and say, honey, honey, I'm okay. I'm still drinking my coffee at my desk. I'm good.